Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into a really interesting public discussion about feminism. What are its real-world impacts?
Exactly. We've got sources exploring some pretty strong claims, about women's happiness, how society is structured.
And how feminism affects everyone, not just women. Our goal here is really to help you unpack these complex ideas.
And what's fascinating is how these arguments often come from totally different starting points about, progress.
Right.
And what fulfillment even means.
Definitely. So we'll lay out the claims and the counterclaims, trying to offer different ways to think about what's going on.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's kick off with a pretty provocative claim that the sexual revolution actually devalued women, made them less happy.
Right. The argument goes that women offering, quote, goods for free meant less commitment from men.
And proponents say this led to more unhappiness for women. They point to things like rising suicide rates, more medication use, binge drinking, all supposedly up since the 1950s.
And also increased objectification. Things like, OnlyFans or the whole Kardashian cultural phenomenon are sometimes brought up as examples here.
But there's a strong counter-argument, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. The flip side is that the sexual revolution was actually empowering. It opened doors for women into the workplace, into public life.
And crucially, gave them control over reproduction. That's a big one.
Huge. Plus, supporters of this view highlight things like rape rates reportedly being halved in the last 20 years, lower STI rates, often linked to better sex ed.
And they also mention places like the Nordic countries.
Yeah, exactly. Known for more open sexual norms, but women there report high levels of happiness and, interestingly, marital satisfaction. So is it really simple devaluation? Or is it more complex?
That really shows how differently these big societal shifts can be read. It leads us right into another key debate: career versus raising children for fulfillment.
Ah, yes. The claim that basically no career can give a woman the same joy as raising kids.
Right. It's often framed as this natural, almost biological path to spiritual fulfillment, and that women are maybe pressured into careers that just can't compete with family.
It really taps into that whole choice versus societal pressure thing. But, the data paints a different picture sometimes.
Like how almost half the workforce are women.
Precisely. And many are balancing both career and motherhood. Studies suggest working mothers are actually less likely to be in poverty.
And that a mother's education level can predict better outcomes for her kids. Higher incomes, fewer behavioral issues, that sort of thing.
That's what some research indicates, yes. And conversely, some studies suggest stay-at-home mothers might experience higher rates of depression or anxiety.
And that whole idea about deathbed regrets, career over human connection, that's not just a women's issue, right?
Exactly. It's presented as a universal human thing, not specific to gender.
Okay, so if fulfillment isn't so clear-cut, what about power structures? This whole matriarchy versus patriarchy idea comes up.
Right. The claim being we're already in a matriarchy, that women hold significant social, maybe even political sway.
Citing things like the Me Too movement or how media seems responsive to women's issues.
And arguing that, if there aren't as many women in top leadership roles, it's just down to different interests, not actual inequality.
But the definition of patriarchy is pretty specific, isn't it? Male-dominated power structures.
Our definition, yes. And if you look at, say, government representation,
the numbers aren't matriarchal. Like the U.S. House is only about 25% female, Senate 28%.
And historically, it's even starker. Only about 3.3% of Congress members ever have been women. That directly challenges the political matriarchy idea.
And then there are the stats on violence,
which are hard to ignore. 81% of women sexually assaulted, 98% of perpetrators male, very low conviction rates for rape. It points to vulnerability, not dominance.
Plus the economic side. Women owning, 55 cents for every dollar men own? Lack of paid maternity leave in many places? Restrictions on abortion rights?
It all paints a picture of ongoing power imbalances, depending on how you measure power, of course.
It certainly makes you think about what power really means. Okay, final point. And this one's a bit of a twist. The claim that feminism has actually made things easier for men.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. The argument is it reduces the need for commitment, maybe provides easier access to sex, less effort needed in relationships.
And they even link sex education sometimes to lower rates of virginity among high school grads as part of this easier for men idea.
Well, while some might interpret it that way, the counter is that feminism can actually benefit men too, by fostering, say, emotional intelligence, deeper connections.
And policies like Title IX's, that's credited with a huge jump in women going to college.
A 600% increase, yeah. which arguably benefit everyone by expanding the talent pool. And while, the harms of pornography are a valid concern for many.
The broader feminist goal is generally framed as equality, right? Which includes things like men's mental health, healthier relationships for all.
Exactly. It's positioned as aiming for a society where all genders can thrive, not just one.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really shows how these seemingly simple ideas are actually, incredibly complex, just layers upon layers of ideas, stats, personal experiences, all woven together.
It certainly does. Not much is black and white here.
It really leaves us and you with a final, maybe provocative question to chew on. How do all these things, the deep-seated social norms, the hard economic realities, and our own individual choices, how do they all intersect to shape the fulfillment and the freedom that everyone, all genders, experiences in society today?